The home office printer cleared its digital throat the way it always did when Rowan sent something from upstairs. Usually it was spreadsheets, forms, or documents with so many buzzwords I could build a drinking game around them. I didn't look up at first. I was too busy trying to make last night's curry look like a respectable lunch, stirring it in circles, pretending that the smell of microwave turmeric was somehow symbolic of a stable marriage. It wasn't. The printer clicked again. 3 pages slid out, crisp, innocent, and, unlike my marriage, honest. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I glanced over, only because of the emoji, the winking one. I don't know why that was what got me, but there it was, right under Rowan's name. You smell like spreadsheets and sin. I froze, spoon suspended mid-air. I'm not sure whether it was the spreadsheet part or the sin part that irritated me more. Probably the spreadsheet part. No one flirts with corporate metaphors unless they're guilty. At first I convinced myself it was nothing. Maybe I misread it. Maybe I hallucinated the emoji. Maybe the curry fumes were doing something to me. Then I read the next line. I booked the room. Same hotel. Use the side entrance so no one sees us. Bring that perfume I like. That was when the curry bowl hit the counter and my heart. No, not using that expression. Let's just say something lodged itself in my chest that wasn't curry. I read all 3 pages. I didn't skim. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I read them like I was auditing a spreadsheet for tax fraud. Line by line, timestamp by timestamp, message by message. He didn't even bother deleting the thread name, Jen. A sparkle emoji. He never used emojis with me. I got okay and sure, and occasionally fine. She got sparkles in hotel rooms. I didn't storm upstairs, didn't confront him, didn't run to the bathroom to splash water on my face like a drama character. I just stood there, pages in hand, and thought, so this is how the printer finally earns its paycheck. He had disabled message previews on his phone 2 months ago. I noticed. He said it was a productivity decision, which is hilarious, considering he once asked me what PTO stood for. But now I understood. He wasn't protecting productivity. He was protecting emojis. I took a long breath, folded the papers in half, then in half again, slid them into a manila folder, and wrote household receipts on the tab. No one ever opens the household receipts folder. Not even the IRS wants to go near that level of boredom. Perfect camouflage. Outside, the suburban street was doing its usual performance. Perfect lawns, identical mailboxes, neighbors who acted like they lived inside a brochure. The kind of place where the loudest scandal was someone putting up Halloween decorations too early. If they only knew the material I was holding in my hands, the HOA might finally have something worth whispering about. I cleaned the counter, reheated the curry again because the universe hates me, and ate standing up, reading the messages a second time with the emotional detachment of a lab scientist. Evidence preservation, Exhibit A. When Rowan finally came downstairs, he was wearing that cologne he used to claim gave him headaches. The same one I bought him 3 birthdays ago. The one he said smelled too expensive for daily use. I didn't look up. Printer working? He asked. Perfectly, I said, scraping the last of the curry into the trash. He kissed my cheek like we were a toothpaste commercial. I responded with the emotional intensity of wallpaper. The printer became an accomplice. That's the funny thing about betrayal. People always think phones tell the story. But printers are snitches with better formatting. 2 days later, more pages appeared. Rowan had forgotten to switch the output tray again. Either he was careless, or the universe wanted an encore. This batch wasn't just flirting. It was logistics. He was using corporate expense codes for hotel rooms. Not genius-level hiding either. Just sloppy, arrogant fraud dressed up as client meetings. And I say fraud loosely, because I'm not his lawyer, and I don't care about legal definitions. I care about irony. There was a time when I would have confronted him immediately, raised my voice, demanded answers. But Rowan had been training me for months. Every time I voiced suspicion, he called me too emotional, too analytical, or my personal favorite, "You're spiraling again." He turned emotional abuse into poetry. He taught me to doubt my instincts, and like a fool, I listened. But now I had timestamps and screenshots printed on high-quality office paper. I didn't have doubts anymore. I had documentation. I copied every page, scanned them, saved them to an encrypted drive, created a secondary USB backup, labeled it vacation photos, and tucked it into the Christmas ornament box. Because Rowan hasn't touched a decoration since 2014. He was upstairs on a conference call, which I'm convinced is code for, "I need to rehearse my lies in private." I could hear the tone of his voice, that charming "I'm a leader" voice. If hypnotism were a promotion requirement, Rowan would already be CEO. Downstairs, the curry bowl sat in the sink, and I stared at the manila folder again, not as a wife, as a strategist. I've never been the dramatic type. I'm the type who solves things by spreadsheet tabs and conditional formatting. And in that moment, something shifted. I didn't cry. I calculated. The next morning, I watched him leave the driveway in his polished sedan, the one he wipes down like it's a fragile artifact. I packed my bag, went to work, and smiled at reception the same way I always did. No one suspected a thing, because when a woman stays calm, people assume nothing is wrong. Funny how that works. I spent lunch not eating but documenting, cross-referencing date stamps with company calendars, matching hotel invoices with his late-night strategy meetings. I built a timeline so clean it could have been admitted into court, though I had no intention of going near a courtroom. That would let him play victim, and Rowan loves an audience. The thing about strategy is this: revenge isn't a moment, it's a system. It requires planning, pacing, and patience. If anger is a fire, I wanted to be an HVAC unit. Invisible, steady, temperature-controlled. That night, Rowan texted me he'd be late at the office. I didn't respond. I was already in the car, parked across from the hotel. He said he'd never step into again after that one work summit 3 years ago. I watched him stroll in through the side entrance, just like the text said. I watched her, Jen, get out of her car, adjusting her hair like this was a commercial for dry shampoo. Something about seeing her in real life made the whole thing both smaller and sharper. She wasn't stunning. She wasn't dangerous. She was painfully ordinary. I think that annoyed me more than anything. I didn't follow them in. I didn't need to. I already had the receipts, literally and figuratively. What I needed was something else, a place where everything could unravel with precision, and I had just the place in mind. When I got home, I found the latest envelope on the kitchen counter, Employee Performance Evaluation Form, Rowan Turner. He'd left it there like a proud child showing off a gold star. That form was his ticket to a promotion he'd been chasing for a year. He talked about it like it was a destiny written in stone, as if the company couldn't possibly function without him in a bigger chair. I picked it up, read the first line, and smiled. Because the irony, the promotion Rowan wanted so badly was for the exact position I was also qualified to apply for. Same department, same requirements, same experience range. Difference being, I had no secret hotel invoices. I also had the performance metrics to back it up. Better numbers, better analytics, better leadership reviews. He just assumed I never wanted it. He assumed wrong. I didn't sleep that night, but not from heartbreak, from clarity. At around 2 a.m, I walked into his office and opened the drawer where he keeps his cologne. I picked up the bottle, the one he wears for her, the one that once sat unopened on our dresser for months. I didn't smash it or throw it out the window. No, that would be emotional. I unscrewed the cap, poured half the bottle onto the leather seat of his car, and let it absorb. That scent would never leave. Every time he sat inside, he'd be inside the same perfume he used to betray me. A portable confession. Call it symbolism, call it petty. I call it version 1 of a multi-phase rollout. When I locked the car again, I caught my reflection in the window. I didn't look broken. I didn't look unhinged. I looked awake, and that was new. 2 days later, the neighbor across the street, Denise, the unofficial president of suburban surveillance, waved me over while I was collecting the mail. "You doing okay, honey?" she asked in that voice that's both concern and curiosity. "Fantastic," I said, smiling. "Why?" "Oh, no reason. Just noticed Rowan's been out late. A lot. You're not, having trouble, are you?" I considered telling her everything, right there between the rose bushes and the recycling cart, but instead I leaned in and whispered, "Denise, when I'm ready, you're going to need popcorn." Then I walked away, leaving her vibrating with potential gossip energy. I swear I heard her gasp. That night, Rowan came home earlier than usual and complained the car smelled like a department store exploded. "Oh," I said, "maybe you just got used to it." He squinted at me, like he wasn't sure if it was an insult. It was. He asked what I'd been up to. I told him I applied for the same promotion. He laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Anika, come on. You're great, but they're grooming me for that role." "Interesting," I said, stirring tea, "because the numbers suggest I'm outperforming you in every key category." He blinked. That was the moment something flickered behind his eyes. Not guilt, not fear, something worse. Realization. He started to say something, maybe an excuse, maybe a lie, but I cut him off. "Printer's working great, by the way." The mug in his hand didn't fall, but it shook just enough for me to notice. And that, right there, was better than any screaming match, because silence, when chosen, is more powerful than shouting. 5 minutes later, he was upstairs, pacing. I could hear drawers opening, closing, footsteps, muttering, the realization forming that maybe I wasn't as oblivious as he hoped. And I knew what would come next. The questions, the probing, the casual, "Did you print anything weird lately?" Denial disguised as small talk. I didn't respond. I didn't go after him. I let the silence expand like plastic wrap. He wasn't afraid I found out about the affair. He was afraid I could prove it. That's when I knew I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was running the whole game, and I had barely started. By the time I went to bed, the printer was quiet again. But I swear, if it could talk, it would have said, "You're welcome." The first time Rowan called me irrational in front of someone else, it was at a work event. We were at one of those forced corporate dinners with too many wine glasses and too much forced laughter. I'd mentioned something harmless, like how he'd been working late almost every night, and he'd chuckled and said, "She gets a little emotional when I'm dedicated." The table laughed. I laughed too because the alternative was flipping the table, and HR usually frowns on that. After that night, I stopped speaking up in public, not because he was right, but because every time I did, he found a way to turn me into a punchline. So when he started saying synergy meeting with that confident tone, I just nodded. I nodded while my brain quietly started cataloguing inconsistencies like a human lie detector in a cardigan. The next morning, I went to work early. I made it a point to look like the most composed person in the building, coffee in hand, blazer pressed, hair immaculate. People underestimate calm. Calm is camouflage. At my desk, I opened the shared expense database and started cross-referencing. That's what I do best. Patterns, anomalies, quiet betrayals hidden in rows and columns. And there it was. 3 entries under client consultation, hotel services. Same location, 3 dates. Each one perfectly aligned with Rowan's so-called strategy sessions. He didn't even bother changing the cost code. I almost respected the laziness. I built a spreadsheet titled Budget Analysis so no one would look twice if they saw it on my monitor. Column A, date. Column B, location. Column C, amount. Column D, lies. That last one was for me. While the pivot table was crunching, Jennifer from accounting, yes, that Jennifer, stopped by my desk. She smiled, all lip gloss and false sweetness. "Hey, Anika, you're always so on top of things. Mind checking my report before submission? I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything." Her tone was casual, but my internal alarm went off. This woman was either brave or foolish. I took her report, scanned it, and nearly laughed. One of her reimbursement forms had the same hotel address as Rowan's expense sheet. She'd filed it under client outreach. I could have circled it in red pen and handed it back, but that would have ruined the fun. Instead, I smiled. "Sure, I'll take a look after lunch." She beamed. "You're the best." If only she knew what kind of analysis I was running. Lunch was less of a meal and more of a performance. My co-workers sat gossiping about everything from office romances to whose toddler bit another at daycare. It was a symphony of suburban intrigue, conducted by caffeine and boredom. I contributed polite nods and an occasional "really," while my mind replayed Jennifer's smile. Across the cafeteria, Rowan appeared with his typical posture, straight-backed, confident, untouchable. He spotted me, waved like we were the poster couple for workplace balance, and walked over. "Hey," he said, dropping a hand on my shoulder. "Did you get that data summary I sent last night?" "Oh, the one you emailed at 11:47 p.m.? "Yeah, got it," I said. He chuckled. "That's commitment, right? The team says I'm practically married to my job." "How romantic," I said flatly. He leaned in, voice soft. "Don't start, Anika, not here." I didn't start anything. He smiled for the audience and walked away, leaving behind that faint scent of cologne that now felt like an insult. A few tables over, I caught Denise, my neighbor and self-appointed gossip ambassador, pretending not to watch. She was in town for lunch with a friend and spotted the whole exchange. I could almost hear her future retelling. They seemed tense, but she smiled through it. Brave girl. Perfect. Let her narrate. The suburban rumor mill was the best PR I could ask for. That night, I pretended to work late. I stayed in the office after everyone left, lights dimmed, only my monitor glowing. I didn't have a reason other than wanting to feel what he must feel when he lies about working late. I looked at the empty cubicles and thought about how quiet deceit really is. It doesn't roar, it hums. Before leaving, I printed copies of Jennifer's expense report and slipped them into the same manila folder as the texts. I was building something solid now, something corporate enough to sting. When I got home, Rowan was already there, sitting on the couch with his laptop. "Big day?" he asked without looking up. "Busy," I said, dropping my bag. "You?" He closed the laptop with a sigh that was meant to sound exhausted but came out rehearsed. "Same. So many meetings. We're pushing hard for this promotion. You know how it is." I sat opposite him and studied his face. He was good at this. The calm tone, the slight wrinkle of stress, the way he made it sound like he was saving the company one spreadsheet at a time. "You've been using the hotel near the conference center again, right?" I asked casually. He frowned. "Yeah, sometimes. Why?" "Oh, just curious. Someone mentioned the rates went up." He shrugged. "Company covers it. Why?" I smiled. "Just wondering if they'll still cover it when they realize you're using the wrong cost code." The silence that followed was a thing of beauty. He blinked slowly, weighing how much I knew. "What are you implying?" "Nothing," I said, standing. "I just like accuracy." And I left the room before he could recover. The next morning, he was overly cheerful. That's Rowan's panic mode, overcompensation. He made coffee, complimented my dress, even packed my lunch. It would have been endearing if I didn't know it was strategic damage control. I played along. "Thanks," I said, kissing his cheek lightly. "You're full of surprises lately." He grinned like the devil wearing a necktie. "Just trying to keep you happy." "Oh, you're succeeding," I murmured and took the coffee. At work, I found an anonymous envelope on my desk. No note, no signature, just a photo, grainy, taken from a distance, of Rowan and Jennifer entering the hotel together. I didn't know who sent it, but I had a feeling someone in accounting had been paying attention. Office gossip wasn't a virus, it was oxygen. I slipped the photo into the manila folder. Exhibit C. Later that afternoon, I saw Jennifer by the vending machine. She looked radiant in that smug way people do when they think the universe is on their side. I approached her, pretending to choose a snack. "Busy week, huh?" I said. "Tell me about it," she sighed dramatically. "Between the client contracts and, well, everything else, I could use a vacation." "Alone or with company?" I asked lightly. She laughed too quickly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just curious how those synergy meetings are going." Her smile faltered, just slightly, enough for me to see the hairline crack in her confidence. "Oh, productive as always," she said, voice forced. "Good," I said, pressing the button for chips. "Just make sure you're using the right cost code." Her face froze, the bag of chips dropped, and I walked away. By the end of the week, Rowan's charm campaign was in full swing. Flowers on the counter, surprise texts that said, "Thinking of you," and long talks about our future. It was almost cute. He was rebranding, but I wasn't buying shares. That Friday night, while he was in the shower, I checked his briefcase. Not out of desperation, but efficiency. If I was going to win, I needed to understand his methods. Inside was a small notebook, old-fashioned, leather-bound, very un-Rowan. I opened it. Inside were notes from his strategy meetings, along with doodles of timelines and initials. One page caught my eye. J. Discuss contract extension after promotion approval. So that was it. She wasn't just a fling, she was a business move. Rowan was leveraging romance for corporate power. And suddenly, the affair wasn't just personal. It was professional. That made it fair game for me to handle professionally. I slipped the notebook back exactly as I found it and smiled. He wanted strategy. He was about to meet one. Saturday morning brought Denise again, watering her hydrangeas like she was auditioning for a gardening show. She spotted me instantly. "Morning, sweetheart," she called. "Any fun plans for the weekend?" "Just catching up on work," I said. "Oh, you poor thing. Rowan said he's got some conference thing again, right?" "Yeah," I said. "He loves conferences." She smirked. "Uh-huh. Well, I saw him leaving early with that consultant, the one with the glossy hair and the shoes that probably cost a mortgage payment." I widened my eyes just enough. "Really?" "Mm-hmm. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone," she whispered, then immediately waved to another neighbor. "Morning, Janet." Denise didn't keep secrets. She distributed them. And that was perfect. The more whispers, the more leverage. I didn't need to ruin Rowan's reputation myself. The cul-de-sac would do it for me. That night, I was supposed to be home alone, but curiosity won. I drove to the same hotel again, parking a few spaces away this time. Rowan's car was there, of course. Same parking spot. Routine breeds confidence, and confidence breeds mistakes. I sat quietly, listening to the hum of distant traffic when my phone buzzed. A text from Rowan. "Big client meeting tonight. Don't wait up." I looked at the screen and whispered, "Sure thing." Then I took a photo of his car, time-stamped it, and added it to my growing archive. As I drove home, I rehearsed what I'd say when the time came to pull the pin. It had to be perfect, measured, timed, a professional detonation. No theatrics, no screaming, just precision. Sunday was peaceful, too peaceful. Rowan stayed in bed late, humming while scrolling his phone. I made pancakes. The whole scene looked so normal it could have been a stock photo titled "Happy Suburban Morning." He reached for my hand. "Hey, we've been through a lot lately. Maybe we should plan a getaway." I smiled sweetly. "Sure, maybe after your promotion review." His expression softened. "You think I'll get it?" "Oh, I think someone will," I said, flipping a pancake. He laughed. "That's my girl." If only he knew what I'd already arranged. Monday came like a chess move. HR had emailed a reminder. Applications for the new director role closed in 2 days. I spent the morning polishing my submission. Strong metrics, clear leadership results, 0 ethical violations, clean, transparent, perfect. At lunch, I saw Jennifer and Rowan together in the corridor, standing a little too close. They stopped talking when they noticed me. Rowan's smile turned professional, hers nervous. I walked right up to them. "Hey," I said. "Did you both submit your expense reports this week?" Jennifer stammered. Yeah, of course." "Good. Accuracy matters. Wouldn't want finance questioning integrity right before promotions." Rowan's eyes narrowed just enough to confirm he understood the threat. When they left, I ducked into the restroom and laughed quietly. Not out of cruelty, but satisfaction. For the first time in months, I felt control. That evening, as I was packing up to leave work, the printer across the room came to life. I turned. It was the same hum, the same click. Rowan must have sent another batch from upstairs, forgetting again that our network printer defaults to my office tray after hours. 3 pages slid out. Same emojis, same tone, same mistake. Only this time, the messages were less romantic and more panicked. "I think she knows. She's been quiet all week. What if she tells HR? Don't worry, she won't risk her own job." They underestimated me. Again. I picked up the pages, folded them neatly and slid them into the folder. It was thicker now, like a story building toward its climax. As I walked out of the office, the fluorescent lights flickered above me, and I couldn't help but think the printer had better timing than any accomplice. When I reached my car, I looked at my reflection in the window. Calm, steady, calculated. And this time, I smiled not because I was pretending, but because I was ready. Next stop, HR. And this time, the only thing printing would be Rowan's consequences. I've always believed every problem has a pattern if you stare at it long enough. Cheating husbands, corporate hypocrisy, suburban politics, they're just messy data sets waiting for someone patient enough to sort them. Rowan thought he was clever because he could improvise excuses in real time. I was smarter because I didn't need to improvise. I planned, I observed, I documented, and now I was ready to execute. Monday morning came with the kind of quiet confidence that didn't need caffeine. I had the folder, the photos, the hotel receipts, the text transcripts, and a strategic calm that could have powered a meditation app. HR scheduled final candidate reviews for the director role, and I had already submitted my application with the kind of precision Rowan never saw coming. He thought I was playing support role in his success story. He never imagined I was writing a parallel script that would run on top of his and override every line. The first real move wasn't submitting evidence, it was letting panic marinate. I left a printed copy of one of their hotel confirmations on Rowan's passenger seat. No envelope, no note, just the document, face up, placed with surgical precision. I wanted him to wonder which version of reality I was operating in. Angry wife, quiet investigator, or someone he hadn't met yet. Doubt is a powerful tool. Once it settles in, people start making mistakes out of fear instead of logic. He found the paper before work. I heard the car door open, pause, then slam with too much force. He came back into the house, jaw tight, voice low, like he was trying not to wake the neighbors with his nerves. "Did you go through my things?" he asked, holding the paper. "I cleaned the car," I said, sipping coffee, like a woman in a commercial for organic sanity. "Must have found that while I was organizing. Looked important." He stared at me, waiting for a confession, a meltdown, anything he could react to. I gave him nothing. "You had no right," he tried. "You're right," I said calmly. I also had no reason to assume my husband was using hotel rooms for things that weren't professional, but here we are. He opened his mouth, closed it again. That was becoming a habit for him. It looked good on him. "Anika, this is a conversation for after work," I said, standing. "We both have full schedules. Wouldn't want to be late, promotion week and all." The panic in his eyes wasn't just fear of exposure, it was the terrifying realization that I wasn't reacting the way he expected. Rowan knew how to handle tears. He did not know how to handle spreadsheets with emotional undertones. During lunch, I made a silent announcement without a single word. I walked into the office break room carrying the thickest binder I owned, the one labeled Turner Case Studies, that now housed my growing archive of revenge. I didn't open it, I didn't show anyone. I just placed it on the table next to me while eating a sandwich and tapping away on my laptop. People saw it, people wondered, people whispered. Gossip is the most cost-effective weapon ever invented. By afternoon, the whispers' infection had reached the accounting floor. Someone had noticed I was in the running for the role Rowan assumed was already his. Someone else mentioned that I'd been staying late after hours. Someone else said they saw me talking to HR. No one had the complete picture, but rumor didn't need structure, just momentum. I didn't need to ruin Rowan myself. I just needed to tilt the floor and let gravity do the rest. That night, I made Phase 2 personal. Not loud personal, symbolic personal. He loved his car like it was an extension of his ego. Polished, spotless, leather-scented, always parked at the perfect angle in the garage. So I took the same cologne he wore for Jennifer, poured a small amount into a spray bottle, and misted the interior overnight. Not enough to stain. Just enough that every inhale would remind him of the person he gambled everything on. Let the scent haunt him before the consequences did. That wasn't violence. That was perfume-based poetry. I also reset all smart home device passwords while I was at it. Not because I needed to keep him out, but because the small annoyance of reprogramming every Wi-Fi-connected object in the house would quietly corrode whatever was left of his patience. Revenge isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's just 1,000 paper cuts of inconvenience. Tuesday morning, Rowan acted calmer than the day before. Forced calm, like a guy trying to pretend his house isn't full of termites. He made himself a protein shake, kissed my cheek again, like he thought muscle memory might save him, and left with the binder I slipped into his briefcase. I'd put a single page inside, just the printout of one of his texts to Jennifer. Nothing else. Page 1 of a nightmare. He couldn't accuse me of anything. He couldn't prove I put it there. But he would spend the entire workday wondering how much more I had, how much I knew, how far I would go. I wanted him to stew. I wanted him to imagine a version of me he could no longer predict. At work, I took the next step, meeting with HR. Not to report the affair yet, not to file anything, just to ask questions. I scheduled a 20-minute chat with Cassandra, the HR director who dressed like tailored empathy and spoke like a therapist with dental-grade politeness. I want to understand the ethics expectations around financial reporting for the director role, I said, voice neutral. Her eyes sharpened just slightly. HR people know when a question isn't really a question. Well, she said, the company has very strict policies. Expense misuse is taken seriously, especially at the managerial level. I nodded thoughtfully. Even if the expenses involved weren't large. Yes, she said, It's not about the amount, it's about integrity. I smiled. Good, that's what I thought. She watched me with that professional calm that said, I don't know what you're planning yet, but I definitely want front row seats. Before I left, I placed a single sheet of paper on her desk. Something I came across, I said. Not a complaint, just context. Then I walked out. Let her connect the dots. HR loves dots. Later that afternoon, Rowan texted me. We need to talk tonight. I didn't respond. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, disappeared again. He was typing emotional Morse code. I let him. Then another message. I think you've misunderstood things. Can we please handle this privately? Translation. He still thought damage control was possible. I sent back exactly 3 words. Handle it how? He didn't reply. When he got home, he skipped dinner, skipped greetings, and went straight into what I assume was an internal monologue rehearsed in the car. Anika, I don't know what you think you have or what you think is happening, but it's not what you think. I raised an eyebrow. Which part? The texts, the receipts, the hotel room with the consulting contractor who just happens to file the same reimbursement codes you do. He looked stunned that I'd said it out loud. That was his mistake. He assumed silence was ignorance. Silence was containment. Look, he said, trying to shift into negotiation mode. If you go to HR, it hurts both of us. You understand that, right? That depends, I said, on which one of us filed hotel expenses under client development when the only development happening was on a queen-sized mattress. The vein in his forehead pulsed. I didn't flinch. You're not thinking clearly, he said. You're reacting. I'm analyzing, I corrected. Reaction is emotional. Analysis is strategic. He stared. And for the first time, really stared. Not at the wife who made coffee and packed lunches, but at the opponent who had him backed into a corner without raising her voice. You won't win, he said eventually. Oh, Rowan, I replied. You already taught me how to lose quietly. Now I'm just returning the lesson with updated formatting. I stood, walked upstairs, and left him talking to furniture. That night I didn't sleep, not because I was upset, because I was energized. There's a point in every data project when all the pieces finally align, when everything clicks into place and the pattern stops hiding. I'd reached that point. It was time to move from collecting to executing. Before I closed my laptop, I opened a new document and titled it Promotion Sequence, Final Phase. Bullet point number 1, send HR the full packet the morning of Rowan's review. Bullet point number 2, apply for the same role same morning. Final revision attached. Bullet point number 3, freeze joint accounts before his badge access is revoked. Bullet point number 4, change house locks after he leaves for work. Bullet point number 5, enjoy silence. Efficiency was satisfying. Wednesday came with fresh entertainment. I walked into the office to find a small crowd in the lobby. Security was inspecting Rowan's car because someone had keyed a message into the passenger door. Not a word, just a drawing. A cartoonish little crown over the letter R, royalty of poor decisions. I didn't do it. Someone else, likely an underpaid staff member with access to the rumor cloud, did, which proved my theory. Chaos is contagious. All you have to do is start the vibration. Rowan looked furious but controlled. The executive calm face was back. That face would crack soon. I didn't need to speed it up. I only needed to give gravity time to work. I walked past him and said, "Rough morning?" He didn't answer, which, in my book, was yes. At 3:12 p.m., right on schedule, the office printer did its thing again, another accidental love note dropping into the wrong tray. This time, a text from Jennifer. "You're stressed. She won't find anything. You said she never pays attention." I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. The printer, once again, had better comedic timing than half of Netflix. I folded the paper, put it in the binder, and whispered, "Oh, I pay attention." Then I printed a second copy and slid it into Jennifer's inter-office mailbox. Let them panic together, divide and self-destruct. That night, I received an email from Cassandra in HR. Subject, follow-up requested. Simple, professional, loaded. I knew what it meant. She'd reviewed the documents. She'd checked the expense logs. She'd seen the pattern. HR wasn't loyal to Rowan. HR was loyal to risk mitigation. And Rowan had just become risk. And before bed, I did one more thing. I printed a single-page letter and taped it inside Rowan's closet, right above his suits. The kind of place he couldn't miss. It said, "If you whisper that I'm emotional, be sure to spell promoted correctly on the exit paperwork. No signature." He'd know who wrote it. He just wouldn't know what came next. Phase 3 was approaching. The confrontation, the reveal, the collapse. And unlike Rowan, I wasn't improvising. I had an algorithm. I had data. I had time. And I was just getting started. Wednesday night ended with Rowan pacing the living room and me pretending not to notice. Thursday morning began with him watching me, the way someone watches a ticking suitcase, unsure if it's luggage or a countdown. The silence between us had texture now. Not empty, not calm, pressurized. You could bottle it and sell it as executive anxiety eau de regret. He kept waiting for me to snap, to explode, to have the classic betrayed wife meltdown he could use against me later. But the opposite happened. I started humming while making breakfast. I asked if he wanted extra protein powder in his shake. I even wished him good luck today, with a smile that had the emotional integrity of a stainless steel blade. That's when he realized something worse than my anger had arrived, my composure. He left earlier than usual, probably to check with HR or rewrite his version of the truth. I watched him from the window, sipping coffee, the same way people in crime documentaries sip tea while recalling the moment before everything unraveled. Except this wasn't crime. This was corporate, which, depending on the industry, is basically the same, but with more paperwork. The second he was gone, I changed the locks. Not all of them, just the front and garage doors. Subtle, not dramatic. Enough to send a message when he tried to come home later. Nothing says your access level has changed, like your own house treating you like a visitor. Then I got dressed for work, not casual Thursday attire, but sleek, fitted blazer, silk blouse, quiet power in fabric form. Rowan dressed for impression. I dressed for victory. I arrived at the office with a folder so neatly organized it could have passed a military inspection. The HR meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m., but my evidence packet was already routed to Cassandra, timestamped, catalogued, cross-indexed. I didn't submit it anonymously. That's what cowards do. I submitted it as an applicant, attaching supporting documentation for ethical review. Translation: if Rowan goes down, I'm the one holding the receipt book. By noon, the building was buzzing. I'd barely walked into the cafeteria before the whispers hit me like background static. Did you hear about the expense audit? Someone said the hotel logs don't match the budget files. HR's asking questions. They never ask questions unless something's serious. I heard Turner's name. No one said Rowan. They all said Turner. But the real irony, there were 2 Turners applying for the same promotion, and only one Turner had evidence-proof skin. Around 12:45, I saw Jennifer rushing down the hall, makeup slightly smudged, phone glued to her hand. She was talking fast, the way people do when they've just realized they're no longer side character but collateral damage. She didn't see me at first, but I saw her. She stopped at the vending machine, the one place in the office where people pretend to make decisions while actually trying not to cry. Her hand shook when she pushed the button. "Honey Dijon chips," I said, stepping beside her. "Interesting choice. Most people go for salt when they're stressed." She stiffened. "I'm not stressed." "Why would I be stressed?" Because your expense logs match Rowan's, I said lightly, and HR just pulled the audit files. That would stress most people. She turned, eyes wide. Did you? No, I interrupted. I didn't do anything. The printer did. The universe did. You just picked a coworker with access to both data and toner. She swallowed hard. You're trying to ruin him. Oh no, I said, leaning in. I'm just letting him ruin himself with proper formatting. She stared. I smiled. Good luck at your next contract, I added, if there is one. Her breath caught, not a gasp, more like the vocal equivalent of a cracked windshield. She walked away without the chips. I took them. By 1:50 p.m., I was outside HR's glass office. Through the door, I could see Rowan already seated. He looked polished but strained, like a magazine cover that had been folded one too many times. Cassandra sat across from him, posture relaxed. Too relaxed. That's the posture of someone who has already made a decision and is just letting the other party talk themselves into a deeper hole. I gave the receptionist a polite nod. She buzzed me in. Rowan turned. The look on his face wasn't shock. It was worse. It was comprehension. Anika, he said slowly, voice measured like he was trying not to raise it. What are you doing here? I was invited, I said, placing the final set of documents on the table. You submitted something, he said. You went to HR behind my back. If I'd gone in front of your back, you still wouldn't have seen it, I replied. He inhaled sharply, not dramatic, strained, like someone trying to pull air through a tightening doorway. Cassandra cleared her throat, the universal signal for, let's begin the formal implosion. She addressed Rowan first. We've reviewed your expense records for the past 6 months. There are inconsistencies that violate company policy. We're opening a formal ethics investigation. Rowan tried to respond, but she wasn't done. The role you applied for requires approval clearance on financial integrity. At this time, your application is being removed from consideration. He blinked. Once. Twice. The kind of blink that says, how fast can a person's life pivot in under 30 seconds? And, Cassandra continued, due to the conflict of interest implications regarding external consultants, Jennifer Lowell is being removed from future contract bidding processes. There it was, the 2-for-1 demolition, efficient. HR might pretend to be neutral, but once they pick sides, they move like a guillotine with good lighting. Then Cassandra turned to me. And we've also reviewed the application you submitted. Your performance metrics align with the role requirements, and we'll be finalizing decisions this week. Rowan looked at me. Not angry, not betrayed, just stunned. You're applying for the same role? He asked, voice low. I didn't apply, I said. I qualified. He stood suddenly, chair scraping. You set me up. No, I said, calmly folding my hands. You set yourself up. I organized the aftermath. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He looked like a man trying to fix a collapsed building using a stapler. Cassandra dismissed us. We're done here. He walked out first. I walked out second, but I was the only one who left upright. The office was a forest of staring eyes. No one spoke, but every glance said, we heard, we know. He fell. She rose. I walked to my desk, powered my computer, typed an email and pressed send. Subject, home access update. Message, locks changed. Your belongings are in the guest room. Schedule a pickup. Simple, businesslike. One might even say professional. When I pulled into the driveway, Rowan's car was already there. He must have left early. Burning bridges takes less time than building them. He tried the front door. Nothing. He tried the garage door keypad. Nothing. He knocked. Once. Twice. Louder. I opened the door just far enough. We're not doing this here, I said calmly. Not in the house. Not in front of neighbors. You changed the locks. I changed the circumstances. You can't just... I can. The house is in my name. Title and mortgage. You wanted me to stay home while you ran your career. Congratulations. I own the home base. He stared, and the weight of that fact finally landed. You're sabotaging me. No, I said softly. I'm documenting you. He stepped closer. You're going to regret this. No, I replied. You're going to replay every choice you made until you realize I never raised my voice, never lied, never broke the rules. I just stopped protecting you. He exhaled sharply, turned, and walked to his car. But before he got inside, he froze. Because the final gesture, small, elegant, undeniable, was right there on the windshield. A printed note, taped neatly. Reminder, ethics violations are not reversible, neither are promotions. No signature. He knew. He drove away with the same perfume-stained interior I'd sabotaged days ago, breathing in his own consequence. That night, I sat on the couch with takeout noodles and a glass of wine. The house was quiet. No pacing, no excuses, no manipulation echoing off the walls. Just peace. Structured, intentional peace. I didn't celebrate, not yet, because the game wasn't finished. He still had a career to watch collapse. Jennifer still had bridges to stand under when they fell. HR still had final decisions to announce. The suburban rumor wind was still gathering speed. I hadn't reached the peak, but the fire had started, and this time, I wasn't the one burning. Friday morning arrived with the kind of stillness that doesn't feel like calm, but like the pause before a storm. The promotion announcements were scheduled for the afternoon, and the office was buzzing like a hive someone had tapped twice. Even the most uninvolved employees suddenly had urgent opinions about corporate ethics, performance reviews, and how some people just don't understand loyalty. Which was code for, everyone knew something exploded and no one wanted to step on the debris. I walked into the building with a steady pace, not fast enough to look eager, not slow enough to look unsure. That balance was important now. This was the part in the story where the villain usually panics and loses control. Except I wasn't the villain. I was the system update no one saw coming. HR had moved the final candidate presentations into the big glass atrium room on the second floor, the kind of room designed for transparency, which is corporate humor at its peak. The walls were floor-to-ceiling panels, every angle visible from the hallway, like a fish tank for professionals in pressed suits. I knew Rowan would be there. I also knew he'd be watching for me. There's a look people get when they know they've lost something they still think they're entitled to. He had that look now, a mix of panic shoved behind arrogance, like messy clothes crammed into a closet before visitors arrive. He was already standing by the projector, in a suit he probably picked to look successful, rehearsing whatever version of the story he thought could still save him. He didn't notice me yet, but the room did. Heads turned, conversations paused. Silence followed me across the floor like a camera pan. I sat in the back row, placed my binder on the table, and waited. 5 minutes later, the door opened again. This time, Jennifer. She walked in with the stiff smile of someone who had already cried in a bathroom stall, but fixed her mascara before emerging. She didn't sit near Rowan. That was interesting. Either she'd already been thrown to the wolves, or she'd decided to crawl out of the den on her own. Cassandra from HR entered next, trailed by 2 board members. They took their seats like judges assembling for a sentencing that had already been written. "Thank you for your patience," Cassandra began. "We'll be reviewing the final candidate materials shortly. Before that, there's a compliance update that must be addressed." Rowan lifted his chin slightly, preparing whatever speech he had left, but Cassandra didn't look at him. She looked at me. "Anika, would you join us at the front?" All eyes swung toward me. The effect was immediate. Shock, confusion, curiosity, all layered like badly baked cake. I stood, smoothed my blazer, walked forward. Calm, unhurried. The kind of stride movies try to recreate but never quite get right. I stopped beside the projector. Cassandra handed me a remote. "You may begin." I didn't start with a speech. I didn't need one. I clicked the first slide. Projected across the glass wall behind me was a spreadsheet. Clean, structured, time-stamped, hotel charges, expense codes, invoice scans, 2 names on every record, his and hers. The room reacted, not loudly, but sharply. Like collective oxygen had hit a wall. Rowan stood. "This is an ambush." "No," I said, turning toward him. "This is documentation." He took a step forward. "You're blowing everything out of proportion." I clicked again. A photo appeared, Rowan and Jennifer entering the hotel. Time-stamped, authenticated, no filter, no narration needed. The board members leaned in. Rowan's jaw tensed. "You invaded my privacy." "I printed from the shared network printer," I said. "You invaded your own privacy." Laughter rippled quietly from someone in the back. Cassandra didn't suppress her smirk. Rowan stepped closer, voice lowered, trying for intimidation. "Turn it off, now." "I'm not finished," I said. The next slide appeared. The text message thread, the emojis, the plans, the synergy lies, the hotel instructions. Someone in the room whispered, "Wow." Rowan snapped. Not dramatically, just enough to reveal the cracks. "This is personal. This has nothing to do with the company." "Except for the part," I said, "where company money paid for it." The board members exchanged looks. Ethics violation, expense abuse, contract compromise. All the things I didn't need to argue, they saw it themselves. That was the key, not accusation, presentation. Rowan lunged forward like he might grab the remote. I stepped back, not scared, just uninterested in proximity. Security, alerted from the hallway, stepped in instinctively, not touching him, just present. That was when Rowan realized exactly how cornered he was. Not by me, but by the building he used to walk through like he owned it. "You ruined my career," he said. Not yelled, just broke. "No," I replied. "You ruined your career. I just stopped cleaning up after it." Silence. Thick, absolute. Cassandra stood. "Thank you, Anika. That concludes this portion." Translation. "We have what we need. You can leave now. The rest is clean up." I nodded, set down the remote, and turned to walk out. That's when I heard it. "Coward," Rowan muttered behind me. I stopped, not because it hurt, but because it was hilariously ironic. I turned back slowly. "You spent months lying, sneaking, hiding, shifting blame, and using corporate money to fund your ego," I said. "If I were a coward, I'd have screamed, trashed your car, or thrown a drink in your face." I paused. I didn't do any of that. I did paperwork, calmly, silently, precisely. Then I pointed to the wall of glass. "And now everyone can see through you." His face changed, not anger, not grief, something worse, recognition. The meeting dissolved into administrative triage as I walked out. People didn't speak to me directly. They just parted like water, staring, thinking, processing. Some looked impressed. Some looked terrified. Both reactions worked for me. Downstairs, the atrium lights reflected off the shiny marble floor. I kept walking, heels clicking in steady rhythm. Behind me, I heard fast footsteps. "Anika, wait." I didn't stop, but I slowed just enough for Rowan to catch up beside me. He was breathing harder than the walk required. "You can't just pretend this makes you the hero." "I'm not the hero," I said. "Heroes save people. I'm not here to save you." "You're enjoying this?" I turned to face him fully. "You know what I enjoyed? Being married without suspecting anything. Coming home to someone I trusted. Not being dismissed as emotional when I was right." I stepped closer, voice low but sharp. "But this? No, this isn't joy. This is accuracy." He stared at me, and I saw it again. The panic that comes not from losing something, but from realizing it was never secure in the first place. Then he said something I honestly didn't expect. "You're not the person I thought you were." A slow smile lifted my mouth. I know, that was the problem. He blinked, and then he reached for my arm, not violently, not forcefully, but possessively, like I was still something attached to him. I pulled back, not dramatic, just firm. "You don't get to reach for me anymore." He froze, not because of what I said, because he finally understood I meant it. Before either of us spoke again, security approached. "Everything all right here?" I nodded. "Everything is in motion." They looked at Rowan. He didn't respond, which was answer enough. I walked away. He didn't follow. I didn't go back to my desk. I didn't pack up anything. My things were already backed up both digitally and emotionally. Instead, I walked straight out of the building, into the parking lot, into the kind of sunshine that feels staged, like the universe was trying to do symbolic lighting. Halfway to my car, I passed Rowan's sedan. The cologne smell hit me even from the outside. Perfect. I unlocked my car, sat, exhaled. No trembling, no second thoughts, no soundtrack, just clarity. There was no victory music. There didn't need to be, because there was still one move left. HR could take his title. The company could take his badge. But I would take something else. His certainty. At 4:27 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Cassandra. "Decision finalized. Please be available Monday morning for transition briefing." Translation, I won. Translation of the translation, he didn't. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some responses are better delivered in presence, not text. When I got home, I walked through the front door, my door, dropped my keys in the bowl, and let the silence settle. Not empty silence, not sad silence. Restored silence. I went to the guest room. His things were packed in exactly 4 boxes, labeled, neat, orderly, nothing thrown, nothing destroyed, just removed. That was the real punishment, not violence, not chaos, erasure. I put the final box on the floor and wrote a post-it for the top. Pick-up window, Saturday, 9 to 11. After that, disposal. No signature. He'd know. I walked back to the living room, sat, looked at the window. The sky outside had that strange in-between color. Half dusk, half daylight, like the end of a scene that didn't fade out yet. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. Because the final move was coming, and I wanted to be fully rested for it. Monday morning didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like the final click in a long sequence of moves, like the last piece in a puzzle sliding into place with quiet inevitability. No applause, no dramatic music, just completion. I woke up earlier than I needed to, not out of nerves, but because my mind was already upright, alert, finished with sleep. I made coffee, the good kind, the kind I used to save for weekends. Today counted as a weekend in spirit, calm before paperwork. The house was still mine, silent, uncluttered. No extra shoes near the door, no cologne cloud pretending to be masculinity, no half-hearted apology rehearsed in the mirror. Just me, the mug, and the kind of peace that doesn't come from meditation, but from execution. I didn't check my phone until I was halfway through breakfast. No surprise messages, no late-night pleas, no emotional paragraphs. Rowan had gone quiet the way people do when they finally understand they've lost the argument, the room, the leverage, and the audience all at once. Silence can be a surrender without the ceremony. At 8:03 a.m., a single email arrived. Subject, transition briefing, new director appointment. No name in the subject, no hint. But I already knew. I finished my coffee, straightened my blazer, locked the house behind me, 3 new locks, 3 new keys, and drove. The office looked different today, but only because people looked different when they saw me. Not hostile, not friendly, watchful. The kind of stare people reserve for a woman who didn't just survive something, but redesigned the exit route on her way out. When I stepped into the lobby, the receptionist smiled in that, "I know, but I'm not saying" way. "Conference room 2, she said. I nodded. No need for more words. The glass walls of the second-floor atrium gleamed like they'd been polished for the occasion. Cassandra sat at the long table with 2 board members. They stood when I approached, not dramatically, politely. "Congratulations," Cassandra said, handing me a folder. "It's official." I opened it. The title was there in bold. Director of Operations, appointment letter. Start date, today, no suspense, no build-up, just confirmation of what I'd already earned. "Thank you," I said, shaking hands one by one. "You understand," one board member added carefully. "This situation wasn't about replacing one candidate with another. It was about integrity." "And accuracy," I replied. "Integrity without proof is just a nice slogan." He smiled at that, the kind of smile that says, "We may pretend it's about values, but we all know it's about evidence." "We'll schedule your team introductory session this afternoon," Cassandra said. "And HR will finalize Mr. Turner's offboarding once he retrieves his belongings." There it was, offboarding, not demotion, not reassignment, not leave of absence. A simple, quiet word meaning, your access is gone. I didn't ask questions. I didn't gloat. I signed the paperwork, thanked them, and walked out with the folder tucked under my arm, like it had always belonged there. As I stepped back into the hall, I saw him. Rowan, standing near the glass railing, the same spot where he once smiled at co-workers as though he owned the oxygen. He wasn't smiling now. He looked at the folder in my hands, then at my face. "You got it," he said, voice low, gravelly, like the words were made of regret and swallowed pride. "I earned it," I corrected. He looked away for a moment, jaw tightening. "You could have talked to me. We could have handled this privately." I laughed, not loudly, not cruelly, just truthfully. "You talked privately," I said, "in hotel rooms, with corporate budgets, with someone whose name you thought wouldn't matter." He winced, not physically, just in the eyes. "You think this makes you better than me?" he asked. "No," I said. "It makes me done with you." He didn't respond, so I did. "You once told me I was too emotional, that I didn't understand how the game worked, that I overanalyzed instead of trusting you." I stepped closer. "And now everything that got you here, your charm, your shortcuts, your assumptions, collapsed because I didn't react the way you expected." He swallowed hard. "I never thought you'd do something like this." "That," I said, "was your final mistake. You never thought I could." He stared at me the way someone stares at a house they used to own. Not because they miss living there, but because they finally understand it's not theirs anymore. He didn't try to touch me this time. Didn't try to argue. Didn't say he was sorry. He just turned and walked into the HR office. Security followed him in. I didn't follow. That chapter was done. My new office was bigger than I expected. Corner window, private door, quiet. I walked in and shut it behind me, the soft click of authority. There was a nameplate on the desk already. Not Turner, just my first and last name. No titles, no status symbols. The room was empty of his presence. No lingering scent, no framed ego, no shadow. I opened the blinds and let the morning light flood in. Then I opened my laptop. New login, new permissions, new role, no traces of him in the system. I took a slow breath, not emotional, not relieved, just steady. My first act as director wasn't a speech or a memo or a grand announcement. I opened a fresh document, named it closure.xlsx, and typed the first cell entry, final balance, 0 owed. Because that's what this was. Not revenge, not war, completion. The last checkmark on a list I built myself. No epilogue, no forgiveness arc, no nostalgic rewind. just the end of a story he started, and I finished, without apology, without hesitation, without needing the last word, because I already got the last outcome. Then I closed the file, closed the folder, closed the past, and returned to work.